Imagine a race where the world's most powerful titans, Tesla, Toyota, Volkswagen, are sprinting at full speed, eyes locked on each other. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Fighting for every inch of the electric vehicle crown. Now, imagine a silent competitor, one that most people dismissed as a budget alternative just a few years ago, suddenly pulling ahead with a piece of technology so advanced it makes current EV motors look like relics of the past. This isn't a what-if scenario. It is happening right now. While the global media was obsessed with battery chemistry and charging speeds, the Chinese giant BYD was quietly perfecting a secret weapon in the shadows. For years, they stayed silent, absorbing data, refining engineering, and building a vertical empire. But the silence has just been broken. BYD has finally unveiled its new EV motor technology, and the specs are sending a literal shiver through boardrooms in Palo Alto and Stuttgart. Experts who once scoffed at Chinese engineering are now staring at schematics in disbelief. This isn't just an incremental update. It's a fundamental shift in how electricity is converted into motion. Why is this motor being called a Tesla killer? What is the hairpin secret that changes everything? And how did BYD manage to build a system that is more powerful, more efficient, and, crucially, cheaper than anything the West has produced? Buckle up, because today we are tearing down the technology that just changed the EV race forever. Before we dive into the gears and magnets, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You don't want to be the last to know when the future of transportation shifts under your feet. To understand why this new motor is such a massive threat, we first have to look at the monster BYD has become. If you still think of BYD as just another Chinese car company, you are living in 2015. Today, the reality is staggering. In 2023 alone, BYD shattered records by selling over 3 million plug-in vehicles globally. The year 2024 marked a seismic shift as BYD's growth didn't merely increase. It exploded into a vertical ascent. We are witnessing the evolution of a brand that has bypassed the stage of simple competition to enter an era of absolute market leadership. Yet, the statistics only scratch the surface of this transformation. The true threat to the old guard of the automotive world is embedded within BYD's structural DNA. While competitors like Tesla manage intricate and often fragile global supply chains, and traditional titans like General Motors struggle to restructure, BYD operates as an impenetrable vertical fortress. Their mastery isn't limited to assembly. They own the entire process, from engineering the battery cells and writing the underlying code to forging the chassis and perfecting the next generation of electric motors. This profound level of integration does more than just slash costs. It allows for the precision tuning of every millisecond of energy as it flows from the battery to the pavement. Transitioning from a humble battery manufacturer to a global powerhouse of mobility, BYD's electric fleets are already reclaiming the streets of major hubs like London, Bangkok, and Dubai. With massive new gigafactories rising in Hungary, Brazil, and Thailand, they are poised to saturate the international market with high-tech vehicles that remain incredibly accessible. While the rest of the industry was distracted by the battery wars, BYD understood that the ultimate triumph belonged to whoever could master the motor. So, what exactly is this black magic innovation that has caught the world's attention? It is the groundbreaking 8-in-1 electric powertrain platform. For decades, EVs were treated as a puzzle of disconnected components: an inverter here, a charger there, and a motor somewhere else, all tied together by bulky, inefficient wiring. BYD discarded this spaghetti-style engineering, opting instead to consolidate the motor, controller, reducer, and battery management systems into a single, hypercompact powerhouse. This is the heart of the e-Platform 3.0, driven by the revolutionary hairpin motor technology. To the untrained eye, it might just look like a metal cylinder, but inside, the physics of propulsion have been rewritten. Traditional motors use round copper wires wound into coils. It's a design that's been around for over a century. But round means there are gaps between the wires, wasted space where heat builds up and efficiency dies. BYD's new motor uses flat, rectangular copper wires shaped like U hairpins. By using flat wire, they have increased the copper density to nearly 100%. There is no wasted space. Every square millimeter of that motor is dedicated to generating torque. This allows for a motor that is smaller, lighter, and yet capable of generating a staggering 97% efficiency. In the world of engineering, a 97% efficiency rate is almost unheard of. It is the closest we have ever come to a lossless energy transition. But what does this mean for the person behind the wheel? It means a car that doesn't just go faster, but stays cool while doing it. It means an EV that can spin its motor at 16,000 revolutions per minute without melting its own components. The most terrifying thing for sports car manufacturers is how this efficiency translates to raw, brutal speed. We used to think you needed a massive, energy-hungry motor to get supercar performance. BYD has proven that theory dead. Their new generation of motors allows family-sized sedans and SUVs to rocket from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, 62 miles per hour, in a heart-stopping 3 to 4 seconds. That is faster than many Ferraris and Lamborghinis from just a few years ago. But unlike a petrol engine that screams and struggles, the BYD motor delivers this power with a smoothness that feels almost eerie. Because of the hairpin winding and the 8-in-1 integration, the power delivery is instantaneous. There is no lag, no vibration, and almost no noise. But here is the real kicker: heat management. In a standard EV, if you do 3 or 4 launch starts in a row, the motor gets hot, the software kicks in to protect the hardware, and your performance drops. This is known as thermal throttling. BYD has solved this with a proprietary oil cooling system integrated directly into the hairpin structure. The motor stays at its optimal temperature even under extreme stress. This means you can drive at high speeds on the Autobahn or perform multiple rapid overtakes without the car ever losing its punch. It's the perfect marriage of reliability and adrenaline. But as impressive as the motor is, it's only half of the equation. To truly understand why Tesla is worried, we have to look at how this motor talks to the most famous battery in the world, the Blade. And that is exactly where things get interesting. The true genius of BYD's recent breakthrough doesn't actually lie in the motor alone or the battery in isolation, but rather in the almost telepathic communication between these two massive technological pillars, which has created a performance synergy that most manufacturers can only dream of achieving in this decade. To understand why your next car might be a BYD, you have to look at the Blade battery not just as a power source but as a structural masterpiece that redefines vehicle safety and energy density simultaneously. Because while companies like Tesla were doubling down on cylindrical cells, BYD went in a completely different direction by creating long, thin, sword-like cells that are arranged in a massive array across the floor of the chassis. This unique Blade design allows for a level of space utilization that was previously thought to be physically impossible, and when you pair this high-density energy storage with the 97% efficiency of the new hairpin motor, you get a machine that squeezes every single electron for maximum distance. When you put your foot down on the accelerator of a high-performance BYD model, like the Seal or the Han, you aren't just feeling electricity turning a shaft, but you are witnessing a sophisticated energy management system that delivers power with zero hesitation, because the Blade battery can discharge massive amounts of current with incredible stability and very little internal resistance. This means that the dreaded voltage sag, which plagues many older or cheaper electric vehicles where the car feels slower as the battery gets lower, is almost non-existent in this new ecosystem, because the coordination between the battery's discharge rate and the motor's consumption is optimized at a microscopic level. Furthermore, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is thermal management, because heat is the ultimate predator of electric vehicle longevity and performance, and if a battery gets too hot, it loses efficiency, and if a motor gets too hot, it loses power. BYD has solved this dual-headed monster by integrating a unified thermal management system that uses the excess heat from the motor to warm the battery in cold climates, and uses a high-efficiency liquid cooling loop to keep both components at the perfect operating temperature during high-speed driving or rapid charging sessions. This internal harmony is only possible because BYD is a vertically integrated titan that designs its own chips, its own cells, and its own magnets, which gives them a data-driven advantage that competitors who buy off-the-shelf parts simply cannot match. When the Blade battery and the hairpin motor work in tandem, they create a driving experience that is characterized by an eerie silence and a relentless surge of torque that doesn't taper off even as you approach triple-digit speeds on the highway, which is a testament to the high RPM stability of the new motor design. Safety is another massive part of this narrative, because the Blade battery is famously the only major EV battery to pass the nail penetration test without catching fire or exploding into a fireball, and when you combine that level of structural integrity with a motor that is designed to be compact and lightweight, you end up with a vehicle that has a much lower center of gravity and superior handling characteristics. This means that the car isn't just fast in a straight line, but it is balanced and predictable in the corners, which is a direct result of placing that massive stable battery pack low in the frame, while the integrated 8-in-1 powertrain sits neatly between the wheels to provide perfect weight distribution. We are seeing a shift where the range anxiety of the past is being replaced by performance confidence, because users are finding that these cars can deliver 500 or 600 kilometers of range while still providing the kind of acceleration that makes your stomach drop every single time you merge onto the freeway. The industry is currently scratching its head trying to figure out how BYD managed to make this system so cohesive without the massive price tag usually associated with high-end engineering, but the answer is hidden in the way they've simplified the manufacturing process by reducing the number of high-voltage cables and connectors, which not only saves weight but also removes potential points of failure. By eliminating the spaghetti of wires and replacing them with integrated bus bars and direct connect components, the energy loss between the battery and the motor is minimized to a level that was previously reserved for laboratory prototypes and concept cars. This is the secret sauce that allows a BYD vehicle to achieve higher real-world range than competitors with even larger battery packs, because it isn't about how much energy you have but how effectively you use every single watt that leaves the battery terminal. The narrative that Chinese cars are just copies is officially dead, because what we are seeing here is a fundamental evolution of the electric powertrain that prioritizes reliability and thermal stability over raw, unrefined power, and yet it still manages to deliver world-class speed figures. As we move into an era where every major city is looking to ban internal combustion engines, the importance of this battery-motor marriage cannot be overstated, because it represents the first time that an affordable mass-market vehicle has surpassed the mechanical refinement of traditional luxury brands. The world is watching as BYD continues to push the boundaries of what is possible with silicon carbide inverters and high-frequency motor controllers, which are the brains that tell the motor exactly how to behave in every millisecond of the drive. This is not just a car, it is a supercomputer on wheels that uses electricity more efficiently than any other vehicle currently in mass production, and as this technology trickles down to even cheaper models, the entire landscape of global transportation is going to undergo a seismic shift that will leave unprepared manufacturers in the dust of history. Now we must address the most critical question of all, which is how BYD manages to deliver this level of hyper-advanced technology at a price point that makes traditional automakers look like they are operating in the last century, because the answer to this mystery is what has truly sent shockwaves through the global economy. Most people assume that lower prices mean lower quality, but in the case of BYD, the reality is the exact opposite, because they have mastered a concept called total vertical integration, which is a level of industrial control that hasn't been seen since the early days of Henry Ford. While giants like Volkswagen and Toyota are forced to negotiate with thousands of external suppliers for batteries, for chips, and for specialized cooling systems, BYD has spent the last 2 decades building an internal empire where they manufacture approximately 75% of every single component that goes into a vehicle, like the BYD Seal or the Dolphin. This means they aren't just a car company, but they are a battery company, a semiconductor company, and a software house, all rolled into one massive entity, which allows them to bypass the massive markups and supply chain delays that have crippled Western manufacturers over the last few years. When you realize that BYD even owns its own lithium mines to ensure a steady flow of raw materials for the Blade battery, you begin to understand the sheer scale of the competitive advantage they have built, because controlling the raw materials means they are immune to the price volatility that makes other EVs so expensive for the average consumer. But the strategy doesn't stop at low costs, because BYD is now aggressively moving to neutralize the import disadvantage by building massive localized manufacturing hubs in strategic locations like Thailand, Brazil, and Hungary, which is specifically designed to bypass the heavy tariffs being imposed by the European Union and the United States. By 2026, BYD is targeting over 1.6 million vehicle sales outside of China, which is a number that would have been laughed at by industry experts only 5 years ago. But today, it is a terrifying reality for brands like Tesla and BMW, who are seeing their market share erode in real time. The 8-in-1 powertrain system we discussed earlier isn't just a mechanical win, but it is a manufacturing miracle, because it simplifies the assembly line to such an extent that cars can be built faster and with fewer errors than ever before, which directly translates into a lower cost per unit that competitors simply cannot match without a total ground-up redesign of their own platforms. We are witnessing a moment in history where the learning curve of electric mobility has shifted in favor of the East. And as BYD expands its global footprint with thousands of new showrooms across Europe and Australia, the narrative is no longer about Whether Chinese cars are good enough, but rather how long the traditional giants can survive before they are forced to adopt BYD's manufacturing philosophy. The integration of artificial intelligence into their factories has reached a point where production is nearly 97% autonomous, which means the precision of the hairpin motor's construction is guaranteed by neural networks that catch defects invisible to the human eye, ensuring that the reliability of these high-efficiency motors remains consistent across millions of vehicles. This is the point where the industry reaches a crossroads, because if BYD continues to iterate on its motor and battery technology at this current pace, we will soon see a world where a $15,000 electric vehicle has the range, the safety, and the performance of a $50,000 petrol luxury car, and when that happens, the internal combustion engine won't just be obsolete, but it will be an economic liability. Tesla is currently responding with software updates and price cuts, but the fundamental structural advantage of BYD's vertical empire is something that cannot be fixed with a software patch, because you cannot simply update your way out of a 25% cost disadvantage in hardware manufacturing. The battle for the future of transportation is being fought in the research labs of Shenzhen and the new testing centers in Rio de Janeiro, where BYD is developing tropicalized versions of its technology to dominate the global south while simultaneously perfecting the high-speed thermal stability needed for the German Autobahn. As we look toward the end of this decade, the question isn't just about who sells the most cars, but who controls the underlying technology that moves the world, and right now BYD is holding all the high-value cards in the deck. They have proven that they can innovate faster, they can build cheaper, and they can scale globally with a level of aggression that has redefined the rules of the automotive game forever.